If everybody will take a seat, we will get started with the 8G public hearing.
Okay, this is a consideration of public recommendations for the allocation of 8G funds for elementary and secondary education for 2014-2015.
Thank you. I'll read a brief statement here. This is the 8G public hearing. We're here today to receive public recommendations and input regarding the Quality Education Support Fund. We are required by law to hold a public hearing each year before we begin the 8G program and budget. This public hearing is the first step toward building the 8G budget for the next fiscal year. Recommendations from this hearing will be received by the board and referred to the 8G Advisory Council for review and comment. The board will begin work on developing the new program and budget for fiscal year 2015-2016 at its October meeting, and this process will conclude in January when the board determines the allocations for the statewide programs. According to the Constitution, the allocation must be submitted to the governor and legislature 60 days prior to the regular legislative session. If there's anyone in the audience who wishes to address the board today in this hearing, please fill out a comment card and we will recognize you. These are only to make recommendations for expenditures in regard to the 8G support fund proceeds in 2015 and 16. There'll be no board discussion. We're here to receive your comments and your thoughts as we submit those to the advisory councils. With that being said, I'll move to the first speakers, and I only have 2 cards. I will remind others if they'd like to speak to please fill out a card, and we'll make sure to recognize. Danny Garrett. Did Danny step out? We'll try him again. Deborah Moe. Good morning.
Debbie Moe, President of the Louisiana Association of Educators. I'll make my comments brief. Our association understands that there are 3 different grant programs within the 8G funds that are administered by BESE, and the competitive, the block, and then the statewide grant. We do believe that the monies that are coming in, which have declined, would be better spent in the block grant position, block grant program, excuse me. This is one of the programs that does fund our pre-K, 4-year-old, 3-year-old programs. We believe that early childhood education is the key to bringing our children where we want them to be as they go through all of their years of secondary, all the way up through secondary, and then post-secondary education. All of you know the research that the birth to 5 years old is the time period in which the child's brain grows the most and has the most potential of actually absorbing what it needs in order to function at the higher levels. So we would ask that the student block grant be your main source of funding through the 8G grants. I understand the competitive grants do allow for the innovation that comes from the school districts and also the individual school teacher. However, when the money is scarce, I really do believe that we cannot sacrifice our 4-year-olds. I would rather see the money go into the block grant than into the competitive grants. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Danny Garrett.
Mr. Chairman, members, Danny Garrett, appearing on behalf of the Louisiana School Board Association. We have the same concern. We understand the sort of visceral attractiveness to competitive grant. Everybody, competition is always a good thing. The only problem with that in this circumstance is that there are school districts that have historically been utilizing the block grant 8G monies to provide extremely beneficial services to their public school students and potential public school students in the way of early childhood. Because they are public bodies and because these are ongoing programs, having the sort of lack of continuity that competitive grants would put in place, that they would only have this money in little short snippets of time, will create programmatic problems. They cannot have an ongoing sustainable program without an ongoing sustainable source of funding. It's already not a lot of money. And granted, you know, the AG fluctuates, but but so does your tax revenue. But you know you're getting a certain, you can generally rely and predict what you're going to get. The more and more you move to the money going to competitive grants, the less likely you are to be able to have that predictability of funding and therefore to be able to have ongoing sustainable programs that are tied to that funding. And I think what we would not want to see is funding of a couple of innovative things at the risk of ending early childhood programs that have been in place that can be sustainable and that are having long-term benefit. And so I don't think you're trying to do that, but I think that could be an unintended effect of moving more of the money to these individual competitive grants. And I would hope you would take that into consideration. Certainly if there's other ways, if there could come up with a way to create a funding stream for that early childhood to take the place of what they're using these AG monies for, the block grant, I think you would need to have that in place before you took this other action. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Superintendent Pujol.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Patrice Pujol, Superintendent of Schools in Ascension Parish. I just want to, again, reiterate something I've reiterated to you before relative to AG, and again, is to preserve the block grant. As other speakers have said, we're truly using that in our pre-K programming, and I understand that it is the desire of this board to find a more permanent and secure funding stream for early childhood. But given our current political situation and what we anticipate going into the next legislative session, I think the chance of that happening is not very great. And so at this time when we are working so diligently to really coordinate all of our four-year-old programming across all of our funding streams, including private providers, I just think it's important that we preserve this funding stream because we can't afford to go backwards with early childhood. And I frankly don't see another place where we could find the funding for what we're doing currently with early childhood. And obviously we would like to increase to the point that we were offering universal four-year-olds programming at least to our at-risk students, if not all students. And if we don't preserve this funding, I'm afraid that that is a reality that will be further and further away at a time when we need it the most as we try to bring all of our kids up to higher standards. And just given where we are with the push for communities to coordinate their efforts, I think this 8G block grant funding source is critical to our success, and I would just ask that you preserve it and not move any more dollars into competitive, that we preserve or even increase what we're doing with the block grants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Superintendent Pugh.
Good morning. It's Jerome P.O. from Eaton Parish Superintendent.
I'm sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
I knew as soon as I said it, I butchered it, so I apologize.
Believe me, it's tough. It's almost as bad as yours, Holly. So everybody gets mine wrong also. I agree with Superintendent Pujol, and I'll probably mispronounce her name too. It's three of the worst. We definitely would like to see it stay the way it is and not go to this competitive process. Just over the past 3 years, we've seen a decrease in over $120,000 from 12-13. actually, yes, about 121,000. Seen a significant cuts in our finances from HE. We'd love to see stay the way it is and not go to a competitive process. We utilize it at a couple of our schools, providing that pre-K at 2 of our schools and for some teachers and paras. So please consider not going to a competitive process. We'd like to stay. We'd like to know how to budget for our students, the little kiddos in our classes, to make sure we're providing the excellent services that we have been providing. So please consider not going towards a competitive process, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no other comment cards. I'll give everyone, if anyone else wishes, this will be the going once, going twice. I appreciate your comments. We'll make sure your comments are on the record and given to the advisory council. And we look forward over the next couple of months walking through this process. That concludes this public hearing. Thank you. We will begin administration and finance at 9:30. Thank you.